Hey everyone, Mr. Kindt here with middle school, high school art video number 4, Quarantine Diorama. Chances are you've been spending a lot of time at home under quarantine. It is getting nicer every day outside as we approach summer, but I know I spend a lot of my time indoors. And most of that time is spent in the living room. And for that reason, I've chosen this room in my house as the subject matter for this 3D sculpture. Before we get started, a quick sketch to get warmed up. Today I'll be sketching a combination of only 2 things, because these 2 things were suggested topics from a middle school student and a high school student. The 2 things are a COVID-19 drawing with a positive twist and a dragon. Thanks for the ideas. I started with the dragon because dragons are kind of fun to draw. The bigger challenge for this drawing was finding a way to put a positive spin on COVID-19. It made me think of the brave men and women who are nurses and doctors who are fighting this virus every day. I incorporated the COVID-19 virus into the dragon. As you can see, this nurse is not afraid. She's ready to fight. My goal with this project is to make a 1/12 replica mini model, or diorama, of my living room using recyclable materials like tagboard and cardboard. Anyway, the best way to get started with this project is to start taking measurements. You will want to start by measuring the room itself. The measurements you take should be the width, the depth, and the height. Write them down in that order and be consistent. Before we get too much further, I recommend establishing your space. The dimensions of my living room are 13 feet wide, 16 feet deep, and 8 feet high. Remember, these measurements will compare real-life feet to the much smaller measurement of inches. It didn't take long for me to find an empty box laying around the house that was of a comparable size. I chose to make simple 2-dimensional pieces next, like this window or that window. Flat screen TV, and a portrait. For your first object, I suggest starting with the simplest, most easy thing in the living room. For me, it was this ottoman. It is a cube. Again, let's measure the width, depth, and height. And write those measurements down. Now, we do have a problem. Do I write down 18 inches or 1.5 feet? I know I skimmed over this a little bit earlier, but I am using a 1/12 scale or a 1:12 ratio. This means that 1 foot in real life equals 1 inch in my diorama. So I will write down 1.5 for each of these dimensions. Go online and find tutorials on how to make a basic cube. That is what I did to make this ottoman. Then use the experience to make something slightly more complicated, like this TV stand. Each new piece will present new challenges, but you'll be ready for them with each new experience. Here's a little behind the scenes on how to make these bookshelves. Now what I want to do is arrange those the right way. And if you remember what the bookshelves in my living room look like, something like this. Now, what makes that difficult is there's supposed to be a slant to these bookshelves. And I know that's going to be really hard for me to glue together if I don't get kind of creative. So one thing I wanted to show you would be, well, I'm pretty lucky to have this. But if I want to get the spacing just right, I can set these bookshelves with the right spacing, just like that. I'm using the little increments on the sides to make sure that things are spaced just the right way. And also, a nice flat surface to glue these things together. Now, that doesn't solve the problem on how I'm going to get this to angle. And for that, I'm going to show you this picture. 2 heavy board games on each side to hold the sides in place, and a book to lift the bottom. Now, about this chair. Here's a little behind the scenes for that. I'd like to show you the most important tool that I have worked with during this entire project. A little clothespin. Why is this so important? Well, I've got parts of the couch in progress right here. Okay, and although that doesn't look like much, here's the side of a chair, and this is how thick it is, how wide. And what's made this whole process a little easier and far less frustrating are these little clothespins. So I shall demonstrate what I'm going to do with that. Take your glue, put it right on the edges where anything will get glued together. And then get everything lined up just the right way and put a clothespin on it. And that will hold everything together for you for as long as it takes. I love Elmer's glue. I think it does wonderful things. It's not as fast or as strong as hot glue, but it is safe and readily available. But instead of having to wait for 5 minutes for all this to dry, I can just clothespin them together like that, set it aside, and I can even get started on the next one. And here's the finished couch. Each furniture item took me about an hour to complete, some longer. It is the challenge and eventual success that makes a project like this a worthy use of your time. Nice bonus, I can rearrange my living room in a matter of seconds. As always, I'd love to see how things are going with you. Give this project a try and let me know how it went. Send an email with an image of your quarantine diorama. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.